All right, so when you guys are done with the first part of the activity, I'm going to show you guys the next step here. And the next step in the activity is going to be drawing a box. This box is going to require that we start with a half-inch line from the original lines that we drew to practice parallel line drawing. So I'm going to start by drawing from the bottom a mark over about a half-inch, not really about, but exactly. And then I need another half-inch mark from the top. I can take those two marks and I'm going to put them together. I'm going to give you a little hint. We're going to have to erase a bunch of the line if we draw it all the way across. So what I suggest doing is leaving about an inch at the top of the paper and maybe a little less than an inch at the top and bottom. So I'm leaving a gap here and here. That way I don't have as much to erase and I don't have as many smudges. The reason I'm going to do that, you'll see in a moment. And then I'm going to take my ruler from the other end of the paper. I'm going to line it up right on the edge of the paper, on the outside part of the ruler. Hold it down nice and firmly with two hands. I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, draw a line across. Then I can do this from the bottom of the paper. Hold it down with at least two fingers. I'm going to pull my pencil across inside those two lines, not overlapping, because we're going to erase the overlap so we just have a box. Okay. Then I need to do the same thing on top. Holding my ruler down. Okay. So here I'm going to erase the extra marks. So that I'm left with only a box. Once I have just the box, I'm going to start making my top and bottom wall plates. If you would need to pause this video, this would be a good time to do it till you catch up. I suggest doing the box before you move on to this next step. So I'm going to start by making the bottom plate 3/16 of an inch thick. Again, I'm going to do the same thing over here, 3 tick marks thick. So there's going to be the bottom plate of the wall assembly that we're drawing. Then I need to do the same thing for the top plate. Get this really accurate. Okay, so now that I've got both the top and bottom plates drawn, I need to put some studs in this wall so they could actually stand up. The way that I'm going to do that is by starting to do the two outside studs. If you haven't got these done first, I suggest pausing the video at this point and getting these done and then come back and play this next step. So this next step is going to be starting with a 3/16 dot inside the box on the right side. And a 3/16 parallel line over here on the left side. Now, notice that I did not draw my line over the line here. I left it on top of the line or under the line up here because this stud in the wall assembly will be inside in between this bottom plate and this top plate. That's going to be important. Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to fill in the wall with all of our other studs. Now in construction, this is usually done with this tool here, a tape measure. Not necessarily this brand of tape measure, but a tape measure in general. And what we look for is these different distinguishing marks. On this tape, it's in a red box, which shows 16 of an inch. And then in 16 inches further, which becomes 32, there's another mark. And then after that, there's another 16 inches that has gone by to show 48. And then after that, we have 64. So this tape measure as a carpenter's tool is used to helpfully lay out walls, showing that every single stud in this wall should be 16 inches apart. And we use those distinguishing numbers to do that. Now in this particular model, we have some information that needs to be discussed about the size and scale of things. This is a standard 2x4, or a piece of a 2x4, which is dimensionally 2x4 milled down to this standard size, right? This is the little piece of our model kit 2x4 that we're going to be drawing with. And so we're shrinking this full size down to this size on paper so that we can actually draw proportionally the thing that we want to build on this paper. Let me set this 2x4 aside for a second. So in order to do that, actually let me show it to you this way. I've got a couple lines that I drew on here earlier. Okay, there's two ways to look at the scale we're going to use. One way to look at it is to say that for every ½ inch of real life, this is an actual ½ inch that I drew here, okay, we're going to have 1/16 in our model. So you could say 1/2 inch equals 1/16, but it's kind of weird. Okay, so this is really going to be this much on paper, but it's kind of weird to use a ½ inch here, a fraction and a fraction. So what we would say is that 1 inch of real life, or 2 halves together, this makes 1 inch, right? 1 inch here is going to be represented down here by 1/8 of an inch, okay? So if we know that, and we take a look at this drawing again, and we need to draw a stud 16 inches over to the left from this drawing, we could say that if we need 16 inches and each inch is 1/8 of an inch, then we need 16/8 of an inch. 16/8 of an inch is the same as 2, because 16 over 8 is 2. 8 goes into 16 2 times. So let's go ahead and draw our 2-inch line over. We're going to start from the outside of our drawing and come over 2 inches, and then we need the thickness of our model stud, which is this thickness here. And again, that's 3/16, which is why we've been practicing drawing 3/16. And the reason we're using 3/16, by the way, is because 3/16 is the scaled size of this. This 2x4 is not actually 2x4. This 2x4 is 1.5 by 3.5 inches. And the reason we have 3.5 by 1.5 in an actual 2x4 is because when they take it from a rough state in a lumber yard, the yards will send it through a planer and a joiner, the milling machines, to make it smooth and consistent in size. So it's not roughly sized, it's consistent, so we can build nice straight flat walls with it. We give up, or we waste, about 1/2 of an inch in either direction to make sure that these are all the same size pieces to build with. So a 2x4, because of the waste, to make them nice and smooth and flat like this, instead of really rough, where they would look like this all over the place, we end up giving up a 1/2 inch on either direction, which makes it 3.5 instead of 4, and 1.5 instead of 2. So an actual 2x4 is 1.5 by 3.5, dimensionally speaking. So 1.5 in our scaled size, if we said 1/8 is equal to 1 inch, that would bring us this far. So an eighth, 1 inch of this is 1/8 here, but we have 1/8 and a half of an eighth, which why this is 3/16, because an eighth has 2 halves in it, and then we have that third half, or in this case 2/16 and a third 16th, 3/16 total. So I'm going to go ahead and draw from the bottom another 2 inches with a 3/16 tick mark, and I'm going to connect those two with a line. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of do a rapid measuring trick. In building, we wouldn't measure from this one and then measure from the next one, because if you're slightly off, then you're continually slightly off. When you get to the end, it's not going to be accurate. We want to make one measurement with all of our marks. So I'm going to put the 0 right on the end, and I'm going to go ahead and mark 4, and then 4 and 3/16. Then I'm going to mark 6, and 6 and 3/16. And I'm going to mark 8 every 2 inches, plus the little 3/16. Then 10 and 10 and 3/16. And notice that the extra mark, the 3/16 mark, if I'm hooked on this side here, or if I'm lining up from this side where 0 is right on the edge, there's nothing to the right of 0. It's always to the left of 0 in my situation. So my extra mark, my 3/16 mark, is always to the left of the mark that I started with. Okay? I got to do the same thing down here. So we're going to make this nice and lined up. Clamp it down with my hand so it can't move on me, and we get it nice and accurate. That's 4, that's 6, that's 8 now. And then the last mark I'm doing is 10. Okay. So I don't know if you guys can see this or if it's really noticeable. My lines are a little lighter here and they're getting darker as I go this way. I need to rotate even my mechanical pencil. You can make it seem a little bit duller if you keep your pencil at an angle all the time and use the exact same angle without rotating it. So if you rotate the pencil lead to get to the sharp side of it, you'll keep it even sharper. You can trick it a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to erase this number here because I don't actually want this on my plans. Get rid of these smudges. So that's going to be my practice blueprint to start with. I need everybody to get to this point here, and then I'll have another video for you with the next step. If you guys will have questions, you can let me know. But other than that, that's that drawing a basic wall and line practice. After we come back with the next video, we'll practice doors and windows.